My name is Rocky. I'm
Hey,
a
Rocky.
UI
Hey, Rocky.
designer. Oh, hello. I don't know who that was. Was that Nick? What's going on, Nick? Anyway, I'm a web developer and a UI designer. And I'll be talking to you guys today about UI design for developers. I'll be showing Photoshop, how we would use Photoshop really, like a little bit. But I'll spend more time focusing on XD because XD is actually a better application to use for web design, actually, really, because it's vector-based instead of being raster-based. If you don't know what that means, I'm going to talk about that in a moment as well. I'll actually start off, let me start and tell you how I'm going to talk about everything, and then I'll just get into the things. First things I'll sort of talk about are things like that, like vector versus raster. And then what I'll do is I'll get in with the tools into the programs, kind of show you how to use them a little bit, starting with Photoshop. But okay, so first thing I mentioned, right, was vector versus raster. Does anybody know what vector graphics are? Please.
You said vector or raster? Both.
You can tell me both. It's fine.
Well, I just learned this on the lesson yesterday. So vector is sizable, can adjust depending on the size. Like it multiplies its pixels to the size that you want without a problem, without pixelating. And raster is just a still image, still pixels, I believe, something like that.
Yeah, some of that. Vector actually uses like points, whereas raster actually uses pixels. And with vector graphics, it's the scaling of them, right? So when you can scale up and you can scale down and they still retain their quality. Whereas with raster graphics, as they start to expand, when they get larger, you will notice that your artwork will become pixelated, right? Or blurry, will become one or the other. So,
I'm sorry, so I'm really new to all this, so please bear with me, but so what is vector? Exactly, what
right, so there's a few file formats, right, that are vector graphics, right? One is AI file, which is Adobe Illustrator, right? And one that you might be familiar with is SVG. It's one that a lot of developers use. And basically what it is SVG is a file that basically has like all the mathematic information for each stroke that makes up whatever the artwork is. It's all the XY coordinates of everything. That's actually how it's able to scale and retain all of that information. That's why you can blow it up the size of a billboard, or you can have it very small and it's on a mobile device. And that's how it actually retains its quality. It's because it actually has built into that file all that mathematic information, the X and Y coordinates of all those different points. So, whereas again, with the raster graphics, it's actually like an array of pixels, right? So all of the different colors that make up the pixels of whatever the image is, right? As soon as they start to shift as you scale them up because it doesn't have the X and Y coordinates for each pixel. So, and basically, it's,
that's a pretty good explanation, actually.
yeah, there's also EPS, which is actually another file format that's vector-based as well. So that's another one. There's a few other ones too. There's a handful of them. But like GIFs and PNGs and different formats like that, like JPEGs, these are all raster graphics, right? So if you take a photo, right, you have a very high resolution on most of your phones and everything,
right.
so it's large. So it's good, right? But if you start doing some work with it, you start going beyond whatever that size is, you'll start to notice differences in the quality of the image. Whereas with vector graphics, that's not a factor. So, I hope I explained that.
Yeah, definitely.
Tried to understand a lot of things about that too. Was that good, John?
Good, great.
All right, good job, good man. Top man. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm just gonna go ahead and slide Photoshop over here. Does anybody have, I'm expecting a lot of people don't have any experience with Photoshop, period. Has anybody had any exposure? Okay. Yeah.
I haven't designed in it, but I've built from designs.
Okay. Okay. All right, very good. All right. So I'm just gonna create like a new file, and specifically, I'm gonna actually like I'm gonna probably like bring in an image. And I'm gonna show you guys how to like apply like filters and how to optimize images that you might want to use on the web, for instance. That's important, right? Awesome. So it's good. All right. He's happy with that, so it's good.
It's mine.
Yeah, it's the boss
Guess
right
it's
now.
all yeah.
All right. So, when you first create a new document, right, and the way that you actually do that is, once you have Photoshop, you click File, and then you just go to New, or you can press Command N if you have a Mac, and then this is what you'll be presented with. And then basically what you do is you choose the size of the file that you're actually working with. And this is actually very important because it is a raster program, right? So remember what I said about the size of those pixels, right? So if it's 800 by 600, as soon as you start to go up, so if you're going to like, 1920 by 1080, yeah, some things are going to start having jagged edges and start to blur and not look so good, right? So you always want to keep in mind the size of whatever it is that you're working with. So, all right, what I'm going to do is select web. Okay, as a developer, choose that, and I'm going to actually choose a large size, right? HD, or 1020 by 1080.
So is it better to pick large if you have to use raster, because then you can bring it down cleaner?
Yes, right. Because actually what happens is when you go down, you're actually okay. It's when you go up, it's when it's awful. That's when, everything goes off the rails then, right? So, so when you first open Photoshop, you'll see that there's artboards, right? One artboard to be exact, right? And artboard is where you're gonna do all of your work, right? So you can actually change the orientation of it as well. Like right now, what is this? This is portrait. You can make it landscape.
It is landscape.
It is landscape portrait. You can switch it to portrait. Sorry. So you can actually do that, but basically it just defines the space that you can actually work in, right? So now I'll kind of show you guys the tools a little bit. So this is the elliptical marquee tool. And with this, you can just drag. And then this will, he mentioned ants a moment ago. So what we actually call these guys are marching ants. Those little parts right there, right? It's that's the space that you have for the ellipse that you've drawn, right? That you'll fill in. You can fill in with a color. You can give it a stroke. A stroke would actually be the outline that goes around the ellipse, right? So the way you do this is you go to Edit. I'm not going to talk too much about shortcuts because I know a lot of people actually use PCs, and honestly, I haven't used a PC with Photoshop in about 10 years. So I don't even remember these things. So I'm just gonna.
I'm surprised you can even find them in the menus though, because you've probably been using shortcuts.
Yeah, edit and then fill. And then fill is gonna allow us to choose a color. Let me just drag this over here so you guys can see it. So from contents, you can choose white, black will be here, and then if you just want to choose like whatever color you would like, then you can just choose color, and then you have this color picker here, which I'll just pull up here. Oh yeah, since I'm standing to the side, don't judge me. I know the proportions of it. I know it looks terrible. Just, just go with it. It's all right. Yeah, there you go. It's fun, right? It's good. So now I mentioned the stroke. The stroke's there as well. So you go to Edit, then you go to Stroke. And then I have to get this over there again. And then Width is allowing you to actually define how thick the stroke is, the outline around the circle, right? So right now it's just 1 pixel. Just to make it where it's very clear, I'll make it 10. Let's do that. And then it's you can also say if it's inside centered. Centered, I never used centered before ever. I always use like inside or I use outside. Right? So, but I'm going to use it today and find out. And then the way that I got rid of those, the selection there, because the little marching ants is also called like a selection, you're making a selection. I got rid of it with the shortcut Command D, and the way that you would do it up here is you would go to select and deselect. So that's how that works. So, it's a shape. So there's that. And, yeah, question?
Can you make it so that it's zoomed in?
Yeah, can you pull the
Oh,
whole
yeah,
screen?
yeah, no
Can you
problem.
see the background?
There you go.
Can you make the program full screen?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you guys.
That and the whole white, yeah, that's good.
There you go.
Thanks.
Good. All right. So I'm not gonna bore you guys with shapes. We don't need to do that. But what I will do is I'll show you that. Oh goodness, that's what you want to do. All right. Let's see if we can get it to behave correctly here. Okay. It doesn't want to, so I'm gonna have to do this. Come on, bear with me, guys. All right. Actually, we'll do this.
If you go to Edit Preferences Interface, you can make the UI font size bigger.
Okay. Cool. Not bad. All right. Anyway, there we go. Finally. Okay, so that worked. Okay, so what you would do to be able to see the additional shapes is you would just click, just right here, and then what it will do is it will bring up a menu. And then from the menu, this is how you would be able to get other shapes, like additional shapes to work with. Really, the shapes that I use really is only the ellipse, right, and the rectangle, right. I haven't used the single row marquee period, but it just gives you, it's just a row, so it's just like a line that you would fill in there. So, and then there's a column as well. So I think the most common ones that I've ever seen anybody that I've ever worked with as well, for them to use is only those two as well. They seem to be more common. This guy is a Lasso Tool, and what this does is this allows you to kind of just go over and basically like cut out to make a selection of whatever part of whatever work that you have. It's very useful, like if you were actually trying to work on an image and you were going to like remove something from an image or pull something from it, like when people are playing around and creating like little collages where they have like a person and they put it in front of a whale. Me, exactly. Memes. Exactly. That's right. Memes. Very good for that, right? So that's what that's for. That's what you can do with that. I'm not gonna waste a lot of time doing with that. As you can see, like you can actually delete. I actually just pressed the delete key, and then what it did is it like just deleted that selected space there. So yeah. And let me go ahead, go up here. There we go. Now we can select that guy. And I'm gonna let me do it this way now. There we go. There we go. There we go. That's what I'm trying to get to. So there we go. I was just trying to deselect that. All right. So anyway, so the magic wand lets you select things. So you can select like entire areas. So for instance, if I wanted to remove this turquoise shape there, the ellipse there, what I'd be able to do is just actually like click on it, and then I'd be able to just hit delete, and then it would just remove it. So you can just do stuff like that. This is also good for when you're editing images and you want to like delete different parts of an image. That's what that's also good for too. So you can use it for that. So, yep. And then this is the crop tool. So this is actually how you can actually like crop like maybe the something that you have there. Like you can actually reduce the size of it. So you'll be able to do that with that as well. The eyedropper, you guys are familiar with eyedroppers. You're just like selecting the color. That's all. Selecting color. This is more for a person that's into editing. So this is the spot healing brush. This is actually how people do like edits to images when you're actually cleaning up an image. That's what you would actually use that for. There's also there's a tool there actually to like remove like red eye and different things like that might be within the image, like different imperfections and things that you might want to clear up. You'll be able to use that for that. And the brush tool is it's a brush tool. I'm gonna create a new layer. Let's see there. Create a layer. Okay, so now I got a layer there. Good. Okay, so oh yeah, that's the layer panel there, and there you can actually create a series of different layers. You can actually create folders as well, and you should name your layers. So if you're working on a project, like you can actually like organize all your layers that you're working on, so you can keep track of where everything is. Have a question?
Do you have textures in here in Photoshop?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. I'll touch on that in a moment. I don't want to spend too much time focusing a good deal on Photoshop because I really want to encourage you guys actually to use XD. Photoshop is really for people that are really into like doing editing work with images, and you know, it's really more or less for stuff like that. You can also do animations with it as well. So it has a lot of different purposes, but for developers, you'll be best suited really to use XD. So that's really what I spend most of my time using. What did you say?
Looking at me like you use Photoshop.
Do you?
Yeah, I do for that.
But you use XD more though now, no? Nope.
Again, I'm not a UI designer, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
as a developer, I've used this, but UI, definitely XD. It's beautiful because you can build prototypes and everything. So.
Yep, that's right. Exactly. All right. So brush tool. All right, brush tool is this guy. I'll give it a second. Basically, you would use this. This is for a person that would actually either be doing some sort of. You could actually use this to do some edits to images, but people also use it, of course, to create artwork. So that's more along the lines of what you would do with that. And yeah, there's that. There's also a pencil tool. Pencil tool is similar, except for it doesn't have that paintbrush. Also, you can download a lot of these different paintbrushes, and you can create your own brushes as well that you can save out of materials that you find something you might scan that you might want to use, for instance, and then you would be able to have it to be able to work with whenever
That's
you would
cool. I
create
didn't know you could do
something.
that. That's pretty cool. I didn't know you could do that.
Oh yeah? Yeah. I think it's pretty cool. I've made a few brushes. There's a lot of really good brushes already built in now, so you know it's not as cool as it used to be back in the day. That's for sure. It used to be really cool. So all right, I'm not gonna go through all the tools. So let me try to think of some other ones. So yeah, this is a very important one, right? Okay, so this is the pen tool, and the pen tool allows you to make like Bezier like curves that you can kind of work with to also create like artwork with and things. You can actually use it for selections too. Like if you want to do like really fine-grained selections, you can actually use the pen tool to outline whatever it is that you're trying to remove, because every once in a while the magic wand will not effectively capture everything that you want to subtract from an image. So you can actually use the pen tool, and you can actually use those curves to be able to select that image, that part of the image at least, with more precision. So it's very good for that. I would actually demonstrate that, but that is obviously time consuming, right?
Hmm.
So let's see what else we have here. Yeah, we'll fight with that. There we go. Gotcha. Over there, right? There we go. All right. So when you get ready to remove something, there's also an eraser tool. I believe the shortcut is kind of universal for that one. Then you just press the letter E, the shortcut for that one. That's right, Joe?
I'm sorry?
The letter E for the eraser. That's
Yes,
universal.
yes, yeah. It should be.
Even with the PC. Yeah. Okay. So that's how you pull that up, and then you can just erase things. And then with this tool, you can actually like blur things. It's a blur tool, so you can actually blur different things as well. So you can just, like specifically, this is like good when you're working with maybe an image where you want to have something like in the foreground that you want focus on, and maybe you blur the things that are in the background to bring more focus to whatever's in the front. So that's one real big use.
So just because you asked me about the eraser,
Yeah.
the bracket keys, you can also use them to increase the size or make it smaller.
That's right.
Also for the brush and the pencil and everything. So those were very useful.
Yep. Yeah, actually it is. It's very useful. Let's see. And then of course if you're gonna add text, everyone's familiar. As soon as you see that letter T, you know what it is. You know it's text, right? So of course, and you can, as you can see here, you can just select the different fonts you might want to use, the size of it. I'll tell you one thing that is important about this though, is that you want to make sure that you smooth them, right? Because what will happen is you might be doing some work with them and everything, and if they're sharp or anything like that, this will probably have these jagged edges really bad, right? You have these anti-aliasing issues with this stuff. So that's one thing that's very important to keep in mind. And I think that's pretty much the most important thing is really to know, really, as far as that's concerned. So what I'll do now is I'll actually bring in an image, and I'll do a couple of things to it, so that you can actually see how to apply some of this stuff to something real instead of just have silly shapes and things.
Do you remember the name of any alternative program that's free, that's kind of similar to Photoshop? I remember someone mentioning one, but I don't remember.
Yeah, there's I know there's GIMP, there's Inkscape, except for Inkscape is actually vector based, so that's actually more like Illustrator. So yeah, that's the most common one that I can think of. I know there's one for Linux and Mac called Krita, I believe, but I think that one's vector based as well.
Is Corel still a thing?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not
still,
free, though.
As far as I
Yeah,
know.
that's paid too though.
Is it?
Yeah.
I know on Mac there's a free one that's not awesome, but it's free, called Paint.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
Windows
Paint
Paint.
Plus
Mine
or
does.
something.
Paint.
Nah, it's a free program. I can't remember. I don't have my Mac here, so I can't look into it.
Oh, okay.
If you're just doing really simple graphic stuff, it can do vector and raster.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't have a lot of tools with it.
Yeah, there's a handful actually. There's a lot, come to think of it. Yeah, it's actually quite a few. I remembered that there was, I don't know how popular this is anymore, but there was Autodesk Sketch as well, which was a program that was like Photoshop as well.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another one.
And just so everyone knows, if you have a student email, you're able to get their prices down to $20 a month. And that gives you access to all their applications. If you only want access to Photoshop, I think it goes down to like $15 a month or so.
It's gotta be less than that, cause it's only like
Yeah.
$10 for Photoshop
Yeah, there
anyway,
you
so it's
go.
probably like $5.
Yeah,
Just
you're
in-
talking about the Adobe
Yes.
for the Creative Suite.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally when they go to a subscription model, it screws you as a user, but since their subscriptions were like thousands of dollars, $20 a month is a good deal.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Right. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually place an image. So I'm
No,
gonna import an image
I used to use
to
it.
actually start showing you like some of the image manipulation that you might actually wanna do. Like as a developer, you might be in a position where maybe you're doing some freelance work and, you know, the client might want some design stuff done and you're like, oh man, I don't know how to do that stuff. Or you at least know how to do like some basic little image edits. Which, by the way, is very important for me to tell you this too. The things that I'll show you how to do with the images anyway, you can actually do with CSS because there's CSS filters, right, that you can also apply. That will give you some of these exact same effects as well. So it's just, that's another reason why I say it's kind of better just to really use XD as well, because really you guys can really just use CSS to achieve a lot of the image manipulation that you would actually do in Photoshop anyway. So I'm gonna go to File, and I'm gonna go to Place, and I guess it's a Place Embedded now. So let me see. Let me say stock photos. I'm gonna grab one of these. I'm gonna bring it in for you guys. Let's see which one we're gonna work with. This one. I'm trying to pull one here. I'm just gonna grab that. All right. So we have a hand with phone, right? So, all right. So you have that. So one of the first things I do, I go in here and I rasterize the layer, start working on it. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to, one thing that you might wanna do that's very simple to do actually is you might wanna just kinda like make the image like black and white, kind of a grayscale. So you can go here to images. I'm gonna do a blank there. Image. That, yeah, it's image, it's adjust, and then you can go to desaturate. Right? Now, what often happens when you're dealing with black and white images is sometimes you want to increase or decrease the blacks and the white that's in the image. And the way that you would do that is to deal with the brightness and the contrast between the black and the white, right, in this case. So the way you would do that is still under image, you just go to adjust, and you have brightness and contrast. And then, once we're doing this, you can actually go up and down. As you can see, it just brightens it. For this one, I'd actually probably brighten it a little bit, and I would do the contrast. As you can see, the phone, the actual splash screen there with that background became darker, so it's a little more defined. You can actually see it a little more, make it out a bit more. So yeah, that's the one thing that you can do. Now I'm gonna cancel, right? And I'm gonna step back, take that away. I think it was in CS6. I think Photoshop incorporated actual color filters. So you can also, instead of just going like black or white, you can actually say, hey, well, I actually want this to be a particular color. I can add like a sepia tone, which actually gives you that, that sort of, for lack of better words, it's kind of like that old school, old photography look. It's like what the sepia tone is. It's kind of a, how would you describe that?
Browns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so when you do that, so you just go here as well, and then you have this photo filter, the name of it, and then this is where you can actually select the different colors that you might want to work with. That would be the color that you select. You can select whatever color you would like. But you can also go from a list of colors that already exist, like common ones that a person might want to use. I think sepia will actually be here. Yep, it is. So I will adjust this, increase this so it makes it very clear. And then you can see it. Now you can see the effect of using that particular filter. So with this particular image, to do this, to really get the true effect of that, I'd actually desaturate it. So I'd do what I just did, and then I would apply the filter. That's how you would actually do that to achieve that look. But you can just go to this one, and you can just, it's like purple. It's like whatever the color is. You know, you can do something like that. And in fact, I'm gonna play around with it a little bit. I'm going to actually add a gradient now. So you can kind of see how to work with that. I forgot, I didn't actually show you guys that. So there's different kinds of gradients, right? There's a linear gradient, which is the one that I use most commonly. And then there's the radial radio?
Mhm.
Is that how you say that word? The one that
Radio.
has the,
I'd
it
say
starts from the
radio.
center.
I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be the radio,
Radii.
it's a circle.
Radii? Radii?
Yeah.
Radii.
Yeah, there you go.
Radius.
He's got it.
Radii is plural.
Radius.
Does he say
Diameter is the
yes?
whole thing.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, you're
I'm
on
gonna
it.
let him do it.
We got you.
I'm gonna let him do it. All right.
Radius
So,
is just a point.
I'm gonna leave that color the way that that is. And what I'm gonna actually do is I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. So, yeah, that's okay. Actually, you know what? This is good that it doesn't occupy all that space, so I can actually show you guys how to do that. So I'm gonna select the layer where the image is, and then these guys are the way that you can actually stretch it. So I'm gonna actually stretch this guy a little bit. So it occupies all this space. That's good. Alright. There we go. And you can lock the layers when you're done working with them. I do that because sometimes you might actually be working on something for a couple hours, and then you forget, and then you start doing something on that layer, and then you're like, oh, what did I just do? And you gotta do, undo. That happens, and it's terrible. So, all right, I'm gonna press G. G's the shortcut for the gradient. And you have to make sure that you have the right one selected here. I have the one selected that only gives one color. I could have the one that gives two colors, which will be the two colors that's here, the foreground and the background that's there. So, but I'm gonna only choose one. So this would be the one that I would choose. And then of course there's black and white, and there's all these various colors that you'd be able to choose as well. But I'm gonna just choose this guy. And then I'm gonna start from the bottom, and I'm gonna drag him up. When you really want precision with this though, you would wanna hold the shift key and just drag up, you know? And then, as you can see, I don't have precision because it's more in the corner than it is right there, but that's okay, right? For demonstration purposes, right? So that's one way that you would be able to do add some effects to an image. Another thing too is there's all these different blending modes. Blending modes can actually be achieved with CSS as well. So again, Photoshop is like here, and you can use it, but you don't have to use it, because there's actually these blending modes you can use with CSS3. So, all right, so now I'm going to, grab one of these, multiply. As you hover over them, you'll actually start seeing what the effects will be. And remember, whatever layer that you're on is gonna be the one that those effects are gonna apply to.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I'm on right now is the gradient layer. So, a lot of these are undesirable. Do not do that. Please don't do that. The one that I honestly find myself using, I really only use 3 of these. I use overlay, right? And I use multiply, and I use color. Those are the ones that I typically use. Multiply will actually make it where the layers of the images, you'll actually get more of a dark effect, like with the images blending together, right? Overlay will kind of cross them and sort of blend them. I wish I had a really good image to demonstrate that with. I don't. So I'm gonna just kind of say that, leave that as is. I'm gonna do what you just said, right? Just leave that there. Leave that there. So I'm gonna do that. So, but yeah, you can play with these and get different effects that you might like. So yeah, that's good. You can also drop the transparency of the layer as well. So sometimes it just might be a little too powerful, and you can just drop it there. There's something. So there's that, and then there's another way that you can do things. So, matter of fact, I'm gonna just go ahead and delete that layer. I'm gonna add another one there. And what I'm gonna do is grab this rectangle. So just imagine like you're building a website, you're doing something, right? And then there's something where you have an image of someone holding a phone, you know? Maybe you're talking about some new phone that came out or something, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna drag this. I'm not gonna worry about the precision of it. And I'm gonna fill it with a color. I am indeed on a layer there. And I'm going to, let's see what color I'm gonna choose here. Come up. That's fine. Doesn't matter. itself. So I have this now, right? So what I can do is I can go to filter, and then I think we were talking about textures, right? My man right there, talking about textures, right? So to add textures, one way that you can add a texture is you can go to noise, and you can add noise. And what that will do is that will create like a sort of static kind of effect. That might be kind of vague, so I'll actually just show you what that might look like. Let's see, I hope you guys can see that.
Mhm.
You guys see that? I don't know if you can see it back there. That color might be what the problem is. So, but if I increase it, then you can clearly see that, right? So, you can do different things like that to add texture to something that you might be working on, right? That's one way of doing it. So, that's one filter. And another one, this is one that I do find myself using sometimes, the Gaussian blur, where you can actually blur the background. Again, this is something that if you had an image that you had in the foreground and you wanted to have like depth and you wanted to make that background blurred so the focus is on whatever it might be, this is a way to do it. So you have this tool here to do that, but you have this one, and this one's much better, and you have a series of different ones, because with that particular tool, you literally have to go around with that tool and just click all over on everything that you want to blur, whereas everything that you have selected, you could just select a large area, whatever the area is, and then just blur the thing. So, and then there's motion blur as well. Motion blur is just going in different directions, 45 degrees, 90 degrees, however many, right? And then it takes whatever that image is and it, or color, whatever it may be. A lot of times it's a color layer like this, and it would just take it and it will blur it in whatever that direction is and kind of create an interesting effect. It's very useful if you're working with another image and you're using one of those blending modes that I showed before, where you can switch through them and then they start altering the look of the images. So definitely good for when you want to like just create something that you might want to bring into a project that you're designing. So yeah, I think as far as development is concerned, that's pretty much that's pretty much what you would really want to use it for, because like I said, it is raster based, it's not vector based. So for vector based, which is what we're going to go into now we'll be able to actually like create things, right? That will scale. So any questions? More questions? Oh yeah, one more thing. I forgot. I almost forgot this, and John isn't paying attention to me, so he didn't help remind me how to optimize the image to export it for the web. Good job. So the way you would do that is you would go to File, and you would go to Export, and then Save for Web, right? So you have this, right? And what this does is this actually tells you the file size right now, right? The file size is 1.2 megs. So, and it tells you if you have a 56K modem, how long it will take to actually load this thing. Right. So, what we would want to do is, this is already optimized, right? So, a lot of this has to do with the size. That's another thing about raster graphics. As the size increases, the file size will actually increase as well. Whereas with vector, that won't actually be the case. So that's another benefit as well. So what you want to do, and what you could do with that in mind, is you could reduce the size of it, the width and the height of it. You could do that. You could also, you wouldn't want to change from PNG to like GIF, because actually PNGs are better as far as compression is concerned, and color as well, and different things. So it's actually better to have it that way. You have original here. This is actually what the original file size would be, which is, what is that, 7.9? Yeah, it's 7.9 megs, right? So as you can see, there's a really big difference between optimizing and not. It's pretty big. So that's how you would be able to do that for the web. So just bring that down. Just make sure that you choose the appropriate one. Really, you really want to use, of course, JPEGs are like for images, right? So your images are JPEGs. And when you're working with like animations, you want to use a GIF format. And everything else, you really want to use either SVG or you want to use PNG, Google thumb. As long as you do that, you're in good shape. Right?
I've also seen it says PNG-24 and then there's like another one.
Oh yeah, there's a 24-bit and there's an 8-bit version, right?
What's the
So it's just more information.
More information.
Yep. So there's
How many colors are possible?
exactly. That's the additional information. That's right.
Just a little more.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
Do it.
So, for example, this image, if you're going to need it to have some sort of alpha channel, that's what you would use the PNG for, right? So, for example, let's say Rocky goes and cuts out the background, and you only have the hand and the phone. Definitely go for the PNG, right? However, if you're not going to use any sort of transparency or going to have some sort of need for the alpha channel, you can go for the JPEG, and you can res it down to about 50% safely, and you still retain decent optimized quality for it, and the size also goes down. So along with also resizing it for the specific use you're going to give it, don't have a 4,000 by 4,000 image and utilize it for a thumbnail, right? Make sure you size it for the appropriate occasion, but you can also gain some more by resing it down as far as resolution goes. And then as for JPEGs go, you can also go from 300 DPI down to like 72 for digital, right?
Which
So-
is what your monitor is.
Yeah.
So 300 is really used for print. It's not a big concern to anybody working on the web.
Where's that option, the DPI?
If you switch on over to JPEG for saving as,
Oh yeah.
you'll see the res. And then also when you create a new file, you can also set it to 72 instead of 300. And I believe when you resize the image as well, when you click on like edit or something, image size, it'll ask you the DPI that you want to set it as to. Because it also has to resample it and everything.
That's right. Yeah. Very cool. All right. So I think someone else had a question too. Actually, you had a question too, right?
Yes, I was actually gonna ask, so, what about your camera settings, like when you actually take the picture, if you wanted to go actually get the content yourself and make it, how would you set up the image settings of your camera?
I actually can't hear you. Can
How
you
would you
speak up?
set up the settings of your camera, like exposure, how would you set it up so that when you come to edit it later, how would you set that up?
Yeah, I'm not a photographer.
I'm saying
Yeah.
That's kind of outside.
That's
Yeah.
what you need to be as a photographer to know that stuff.
Yeah, aperture
Like your
and all that kind
f-stop
of
and
stuff.
aperture.
I don't,
I do know
don't
that you
deal
can
with
use
cameras.
Lightroom.
Now I can tell you though that all right, so well, actually related to what you're saying, yeah, you really would have to really know about photography to answer a question like that. I don't know. Yeah. So. Alright, cool. Alright, don't worry this. Let's go to XD. Alright. And then I'll be doing a talk next week. If we have a problem, whereas it's there's actually a lot of information that's surrounding like design and stuff like that. So if there's a lot of questions or a lot of stuff that you guys would actually like to know, it's best to either tell my wife or to tell John, and then we can just do an additional talk on one of those things because it can take a while
Yeah.
to talk about different concepts, including like the actual principles of design. If you wanted to kind of learn more about just like best practices and stuff like that, like contrast and hierarchy and typography and stuff like that, that's a talk within itself, right? So just let them know. If that's the case, we'll do that as well. So I'm gonna slide over to this guy now. This is XD. right? So what XD is this is it's a UI design tool. It's used for that. It is specifically used for that, and it's vector based. So whenever you create like graphics here, whatever it might be, you feel very confident in it being able to scale well, right? So I'm going to talk to you guys about this in a moment because this will be tied to next week. Because when I'm coming this week, right? So this is tied to next week. So I'm not going to go over that because we're going to actually take this and I'm going to code this and we're going to step through the code to build a Flask App, right? So I'm going to just, we're going to ignore that for the time being. And what I'm going to do is actually create a brand new file. What happened?
No, it's just that thing's so loud all the time. We're trying to be sneaky, but we can't.
You're good, you're good. So just like with Photoshop, when you first open it, you go to new to create a new file, you get the opportunity to kind of choose what it is that you're designing for. So I'm going to choose the web. And we can actually adjust the size of this. This is 1920 by 1080, but we can just adjust the size of the artboard and everything. Just grab this and just reduce the size of it. As you can see, it actually changes it, of course. So what I'm going to do, though, just to show you how to work with these tools, I'm going to do something very quick. So actually, I'm going to get rid of that. I don't want that. Let's delete that. This is also very cool because it's very limited as far as like the tools that you have. So it makes it much more streamlined and it makes it much more easier to think about and work through.
I just had a question, because you know how I said when you were like doing a new file, you had to pick what you're going to be like just designing for, either like the web, like you picked the web, and it was also an iPad and all these other things. Can you do multiple at the same time or no?
That's actually a good question. I usually, when I do both. I usually do them all in one file. So I usually just drag out whatever the dimensions of whatever the mobile device is. From the artboard right here. You can create multiple artboards just by clicking this and then just dragging whatever the size is. So that's usually how I do it, but I know that there's other ways to do it as well. But that's just how I do it. But there are other ways of doing it, like with so many other things. So there's of course the square, the circle, and all those different shapes. I'm just gonna go and I'm just going to show you some of the things that you can kind of do. This is going to be much faster and everything, you guys. And this has some cool features too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make like a little calculator here. That's what I'll do. Right? So I'm not going to focus too much on the aesthetics of it too much. But okay, so I have this, right? That's the fill. It has a border. I'm going to undo the border. And what I can do is I can add a drop shadow to it. So I don't know if you guys can see that. You guys can see it, right? It has a slight drop shadow there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you can of course increase it and do those different things. And all those settings are right here. So you'll be able to just adjust them there. And what I'll do, this is the cool part. I'm gonna actually duplicate these things, and I'm going to use, it has something called a repeat grid, so I'm going to actually create a line of the buttons, and then I'm going to be able to just drag them down and repeat them. So I don't have to like copy and paste or like
And
grab
line
the
'em
rectangle
up.
one by one, right? So I'm just gonna go like this. I'm gonna get a few copies of this just to go across, and then matter of fact, just for the sake of speed, because I spent way too much time on that Photoshop business, I'm gonna just go ahead. Oh yeah, and I'm gonna lock this. That's Command L. That would probably be Control L, but if that isn't the case, you should be able to go to, where's the lock?
It's okay, it's under object.
Oh, under object? Okay. Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah. So you can lock or unlock, I'm sorry, with that. So, okay, so now that's locked, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm gonna select these, and then I'm gonna click right here where it says repeat grid, and then I can just do that, which will save you a lot of time. and then you can just grab it, just put it wherever you want. All those good things like that. And well, I already showed you how to use that tool. If you understand that tool, that's no problem. So yeah. And then the text tool, of course. Yeah. Another cool thing is, let's see how I want to do this. Matter of fact, no, I'll show that in the other project. That makes more sense to me to do that. So, all right, so that's the repeat grid. I'm trying to think what else I want to do there. That's pretty much it for that. Yeah, I think that's good. Does anybody have questions about like the repeat grid or anything like that? Just going on these different directions. Repeat, very simple. All right. Let me see. Where's that other guy at? Here we go. All right. How are we with time?
You good?
We're good? Okay, good. All right, so this is actually where we want to spend most of our time, where I'll actually talk to you guys about the project. So, all right. I will show how to create a logo. And specifically, I'm going to show this little logo right here, right? This little guy. And actually, this is a great demonstration of vector, because as I continue to scale up, just bring this thing in, as I'm zooming in, I mean, that is, that's great, right? Where it wouldn't be like that under other circumstances. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually show you how to use the pen tool to actually create that, because that's actually pretty fast to do. So, yep. And then I'll talk about this particular little app here. So, did I see your hand? Okay. No problem. There's a few little parts of this app that I didn't get a chance to deal with because I wasn't feeling that well this week. So I will add on to that next week, but it's only a few little pieces. So I'll talk about them at that time, but they'll be really small, so it won't be that significant anyway. So I'm just gonna copy this guy over here so I can look at it real good. You can do it. Yeah, you can do it. You can do it. Did I not have it well? Yes, I didn't have it good. Someone had it. I didn't. That's all right. That's okay. Let me make sure I have it. All right. Drag that guy. There we go. All right. I'm missing this little piece. This little piece. So, which I'm kind of telling on myself as to how you make it anyway. So. So. All right. So I basically made this just using this pen tool. Oh, let me move from prototype. That's another cool thing that I'm going to talk to you about this program, which is actually really cool. All right, yeah, I got that selected. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go like that. I'm going to go like that. It's just a book that has a little bit of depth to it, you know. So just go like that. And you just connect it. And then just fill it. Give it a fill. Or actually, you know what? I didn't give it a fill here. I'm not gonna give it a fill. I'll give it a border. This is another cool thing that it does. It allows you to like save colors that you frequently use by simply just selecting them and then clicking the little plus sign, and then it just puts them there. So it's also pretty cool. So with that in mind, I just selected that. And then what I do is just drag that there. It's not perfect. It's not as good as that one. I didn't take as much time with it. That's okay. And then I'm going to put that shift. I'll hold that. I'm going to click it. And I'm going to go right here. And then I'm going to just stop. Right, just by simply clicking that. And then we have that. And then what we can do is we can actually go inside here. And we click right there. And and we're just basically filling this area. I think with design, I think it kind of works like programming as far as that's concerned. Like, whenever you're doing like live demos are like a sin. You know, you probably shouldn't do them. That's okay. You gotta trust yourself, man. There you go. So then you do that. And then for your little bookmark, you just grab that again. Again, it's very simple. Just go like that. I'm gonna give it a little slight edge there. Bring it down. I'm gonna line it up. It's a really smart program too, so it shows you know that you're lined up correctly because different lines will be there as well.
Is the software compatible with like Wacom tablets or pens?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Because
Yep.
I've seen that. Like, no, I'd rather do it on a pen.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was thinking about bringing mine,
Oh, okay.
but
In trying to use the Lasso Tool on Photoshop with the mouse.
with the with the
don't-
mouse and the
don't-
trackpad
don't
is a
do that.
nightmare. Yeah. That's a bad idea.
That's a way to happen.
It's very unproductive.
So now I know that that's lined up, right? And I can just go across, and I just close it, and then I'm gonna fill it. I'll fill it with the color red that I have right here. I have stored. There you go. And what I'm gonna do is remove that border though, right? Now this has that problem because I didn't make this red. It's my fault. There you go. And that's now as far as like if you wanted to like bring that down so it's more like that, all you gotta do is just of course select these things. You select them. And make sure everything's selected here. And then I can just there we go. We got it. And then just bring that down. Now I just need to bring this one down too. And then we're in good shape. Bring it down, watch. There you go. That's better, right? So that's how you would like create like a book, right? And of course you could fill in this part. I wanted it to be different, so I didn't do that. So that's one way that you can use it. Of course, you have the circle, you have the triangle, so you have all these things, and you can trust in working with them in the scaling and the quality because they're vector. So now I can talk to you about what the developers really like, talk to you about the project, and all this stuff I created with the exception of this guy right here. I actually he was drawn, and then I took him into Illustrator, and I used Illustrator for him. He's an illustration, so as the name implies, it's good if you draw. So I created him there, but then everything else that's in here is all done from within XD. There's nothing from Photoshop. This is only Illustrator and XD here. So the premise, right? The premise of this little app. So I call it Book Stash, and basically what it is it's a way for you to like write reviews and basically create like a forum to talk about different technical books. Is what it's really about. So this is the home page, right? And you can name it, of course. Cool stuff. Has a little hamburger menu here. Has a little logo. All these things. This is XD has these two modes where it has design mode and it has prototype. Prototype's really cool because it allows you to prototype.
But the flow.
Huh?
Is it the flow?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what it is. Yeah, yeah. It just creates a flow, just a transition from one of your screens, one of your UIs to the other. It's really cool. I know that Sketch has something like this too. I don't actually use Sketch. I only really use XD for this kind of stuff, but I do know that a lot of people like Sketch.
I tried Sketch and
You didn't like it?
it was.
Yeah?
I don't know.
I don't like it. But basically, what you can do is you can actually define buttons, right? So, for instance, I'm gonna go back to design mode here, and I'm just gonna drag this out here. I'm just gonna type. Let's see. Let me make the size large. This it's really large, right? demonstrate this to you guys. I'm just gonna grab this guy. I'll make it a little bit smaller. It's kind of upsetting me. It's upsetting me a little bit, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. All right, so there we go. Okay, so as you can see, there's like these social media icons here. So what you can do with Prototype is I can actually go in here. I can grab this just by simply selecting it. And then I can just drag this to what I want it to transition to. So now I did one silly thing here. Let me go back over here and let me fix it. I need to put this inside of an artboard. So we just create a little tiny little artboard here. And then I'm just gonna grab this, put it inside of there. So just cut, just put it in. There you go. Okay, now we can do it. So, Prototype. Just like, all you gotta do is look mean at it, and that's what it's supposed to do. So, select the little Facebook icon there, and then you just drag it. And then now, you can transition to it. And there's different forms of transition too. You can actually do overlays, or you can actually transition, whereas it's actually taking this, the overlay would just like take it and it puts it on top of the actual UI that you're on, right? Whereas when you're actually just doing the normal transition, which is the default there, what it will actually do is just go to that particular UI there that you're connecting to. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna select this, now I'm gonna hit play. Little play button there. And now when I hit Facebook here, okay. So it's really good for prototyping. That's what it's really good for. There's also a feature for you to be able to share, and you can actually record it. When you record it, it's a MP4, so you can actually share it with people, like with a client or somebody who you're working with on a project. So it's really good. I like it. actually very fond of it. And then if you want to just disconnect it, you just simply just grab it and just like release it. It goes away. So just like that, and then just delete it. So that's how you'd be able to do that. Now, of course, that's good for things like this, like buttons and all that stuff to be able to do that. So the way you would share it is that you would actually click share there. And you can share it different ways. You can share it where you actually send an invite to a person, where you get like their email address and then it will actually email it to them. Or you can actually make it where it will actually generate a link for you. And then you can actually just make it where you can share with anybody that just has the link. And then they'll be able to see each one of your screens. So, so yeah, that's another cool thing that you can do with it as well, to share it with people. All right, so I showed you guys how to do that. That's cool. All right, now I'll step through these screens because this will be the code that I'm gonna actually write between now and next Saturday to do all this stuff. So that's gonna be fun. All right, so that's this is the first thing you see, right? If you click the hamburger button, this is the next thing you see, which is menu. I tried to make sure I'm not gonna lie to you. Sometimes I forget to name the things. If you forget to name them, you might forget what they do, and then you have to be like, what's this supposed to do again? After a few days. So, but I made sure I named them good so I could quickly explain them, right? So basically what you'll be able to do with the menu is you can actually search for a particular book. If the book doesn't exist, a user would be able to actually add the title. So you would be able to add the book. And the books are categorized: web development, game development, iOS, Android, all those good things, data science, right? All separated like that. And then there's also the forums that people will actually make, because users will have the ability to make those. And when you make those, you basically title those, and then people can start discussing things with you there that's related to the books, hopefully, or programming, hopefully, right? And then you can also just look at authors, and because I know from personal experience, there's certain authors that make books that I like really enjoy, that I find that they're just really good teachers. They're just really good instructors. So you can actually look for them specifically and see some of their titles and get some feedback about them as authors as well, like a little bio about them and stuff like that. And then you can also just search for books. So, all right. So if a person was to click, for instance, categories, this is what categories would look like, right? So categories would look like if you selected web development, it would just be web development. Or then if you selected game development, it would just be game development. And then whatever those particular titles are, and then the amount of likes, essentially, that those particular books have, and they would be like ranked based on that. So the one with the most would be at the top. Don't pay attention, I see you looking at it. There's a very good chance that's not in that kind of order, right? Right there. But when we code the thing, it will be that way, right? So, but that's categories, right? If a person was to select the author, like this is one of the authors, he's great. So if you select him, it gives you a little background on him, you know? I was also thinking along the lines of what I'm gonna add is kind of an author view as well, for the authors to add their own titles and do different things as well. Still kind of thinking through that a little bit. But you would have the ability to message them, send a message to them. If you have any kind of question or anything, you can interact with them. They'll post different things, like in forums, maybe they create one themselves, right? So one would be here, maybe he wants to talk about the fact that he released a new book, that's there as well. And then there's the book, and the book has the number of reads as well. So it says book reads, and then the number of people that are actually using the app to be able to actually vote on those particular books, right? The people that have actually said, hey, I read this book, right? Get that kind of feedback. And then the person might have talks, and then they would be able to, you would be able to register for the talk, but the register, of course, would be, it's fictitious, so ideally, like if it was a real app, you would probably click register, and then it would take you to whatever the website is to actually register for the talk that the person has. And then if the person has some upcoming titles, those titles would be there. The overall ranking is when you compare one book with all the entire totality of all the books, right?
I have a question. From looking at the software, it's like a wireframe just to help you visualize the website that you want.
Yeah.
Now that you have that, does it have the capability of export as HTML files with the links applied to those files, so that way, because you had your flow, so does it already have like a set of, I guess, ref links?
Kind of like, have you ever heard of Fireworks before? It's like an old Adobe program. It used to have the ability to do things like that. As far as I know, you can't do that, but there's a chance that you might be able to do that because I don't use it that way. I myself personally, I code everything. So everything that you see here, I'm gonna actually code this. I don't use, I use Bootstrap if I have to do something in a hurry. Otherwise, I'm a control freak. I want complete control over everything that's being created. So I write my HTML, I write my CSS, my JavaScript, my Python, whatever it is that I'm writing. I don't mess with those things. Unless it's for the sake of speed, of course, like a client or something.
Because I'm looking at it like, it'd be a great capability because you already have your design, you already have your type, you know, fonts and everything. You could just say, oh, okay.
Yeah, usually what would actually happen, and this is something that I was going to incorporate, that I was going to talk about, but I didn't get the chance to do. Like I said before, I've been sick this week. Is realistically, a lot of times what will happen is a designer might give you something like a style guide, right?
Right.
So the style guide will have the various sizes for the headings, the colors, and all that different stuff, right? So you'd actually just like get something like this to see it, and then you would just apply your CSS, all the HTML, and all that stuff to actually create the stuff. So I'm not sure though. I don't think that there is anything like that. There's also a lot of plugins that people are creating. I just downloaded like my first plugin like the other day. I haven't even used it. I just saw it and I was like, oh, okay. I don't even remember what it does, honestly. I was like, oh, at the time I thought it was interesting though. So I downloaded it, I installed it. I was like, I'll mess with it some other time. You know?
Because I'm looking at like that'd be a rapid prototype. You know, you
Yeah.
just automatically. Oh, here's a test site.
Yeah.
Right then and there, you just export
Yeah,
it.
yeah, for sure. As far as I know, you can't,
Mhm.
but I could be wrong because I never even looked for those particular kind of capabilities,
Mhm.
actually. Do you by chance know? I know that John has used it as well.
I
Do
just
you know
I've
if
used
you
it
can-
for prototyping. You can share that project via that link where it says share. So you
Right.
can send people a link.
Right.
Apart from that, no. It's just for prototyping.
Yeah. Okay.
There are plugins though. I don't know if that particular
Mhm.
ability has been incorporated in any of those. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
I just can't imagine the
But-
code that it produces being
Yeah.
anything good for production.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's kind of like I don't know if you've ever heard of Dreamweaver before. Dreamweaver
Yeah.
was like a
Yeah.
nightmare to work with that code, you know. So I actually don't endorse programs like Dreamweaver and
Right.
Fireworks,
Mhm.
that programs that do that stuff. But I mean, teach their own. Of course, it's you know, if you want to. You know. So yeah, ranking of books, like
Right.
in total, right? Wherever his particular books fall in that category, right? And both of his books are there, and they're listed there. And then popular votes, the number of popular votes that the book has, and then of course the titles are just down there. And then if a person was to want to message him, where's that message part? Message part is down here, over here somewhere. Where you at? Let's reduce the size of this a little bit so I can actually see. Let me slide to the side a little bit. Here we go. Message me, right? So we already know who you are, so all you need is just the ability to be able to send a message, right? Because you do have to log in, right? And you have to register. So you just send a direct message to the person, right? Also, if an author wanted to be able to interact with some of the users, maybe because of a book launch, something like that, chat feature will be there. This is really cool because I'll be able to demonstrate to you guys the use of WebSockets with Python, with Flask, which is kind of like a communication between Python and JavaScript. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, you just when oh yeah, it's important for me to say this. So when the author is available or wants to do this, that's when that button will be present. I don't know if you remember before, it only had message me. So it's one that just says message me. So if the author so chooses to do a live chat, then this button would be present there. And then once it's present there, you would click it in, and that's when you would be able to go here, right? And then you would be able to interact with the different people. Very, right, it's everyone understanding what's happening, right? So there's that. This is just some mess that I have left over. Don't pay attention to that. All right, we'll delete that. There's that. And then, let me see. I'm almost done too, by the way, guys. Talking for a long time. Tired. Books. So if from that menu you selected books, let's say this is the book that you would select. This is what it would take you. It would take you here. You could also save it to a wish list because maybe you'll want to purchase it at another time, right? So I actually have two ways for you to be able to do it. You can do it directly from the title, so from this book, or you can do it whereas you would actually just be able to just type it in under your settings as well. So it's, I personally would do it this way, but I like giving people options, right? So I said appreciations. Appreciations are just likes, number of reviews. If you wanted to like this, you would just click this thumbs up down here, of course. And then this is just the description of the book, what it's covering. This is how you would write and read reviews. We can kind of do this all in one place, and that's better. You always want to cut down on those screens as much as possible. And if you wanted to purchase the book, you would click that and it would take you to Amazon or wherever to purchase the book, of course. And so, this is demonstration purposes. So, and then these are some similar books as well. So, and I think I'm almost done. Oh yeah, and then if a person wants to actually choose the reviews, right? So if you wanted to read the reviews on this particular book, there you go, right? Tells you at the top, that's Python Crash Course. And then this would just be like some of the reviews, and if you wanted to post your own, you'll be able to click post a review, and then there you go. You give the title to it, post a review, very streamlined stuff, right? And then the forum, you have pagination here. So that's also an important thing to be able to show you guys too. Does anybody actually have familiarity with Flask? Or any Python framework for that matter for the web?
It's on my to-do list to start learning this week.
Oh really? Oh cool, okay. Well then it works out good then. Next week I'll step through all the code to be able to create this stuff. So yeah, so you would just be able to go previous, next, and all that good stuff through however many forms were actually created, right? And it tells you the just the last activity, how many people are actually posting, all that good stuff. And then let's see what this one is. All right. Oh, okay. So if you actually select one of them, because first it's going to show you a list of them. So if you actually select one, like I have polymorphism here. So if you were to actually select it, this is what you would see. Like, so this ping is the actual person that actually created this lorem ipsum post for whatever reason. And these are the replies right underneath it. Like just helping her out, you know, interacting with her as far as it's concerned. And then, you know, the person would be able to post the comment there as well. And then when you click this guy here, then it will bring up this. Right? So I think as of right now, oh yeah, wish list. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. All right, so that's the wish list. All right, different books, you can remove them. Again, like I said, you can add it this way, so you'll be able to add it here. So, and I think I'm done talking to you guys for a little bit. I'm just kidding. You guys are good. Let's see. I think that is. Yeah, I think we're good. Oh yeah. One more thing. I thought it would be cool that a person would be able to have a profile, so you can know a little something about Ping or one of the other developers. So you would be able to actually click her name, and then it would actually have like a little pop-up right there. And a little pop-up would just give you a little background on her. Sort of a bio, just like the bio for the author, but for her. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna add a few more things for the author. I'll create like a GitHub repository and everything for it. As soon as I'm done next week stepping through it, I encourage you guys to take it and build upon it, do much more with it. And I'd be really interested in seeing what you guys would do with it, because it has a lot of room for you to take away and put new things in and all that cool stuff. So for now, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, questions. Questions. Cool.
For editing, is there any advantages you find to doing text in XD versus Photoshop?
Not really. I haven't really found any, because you really just use this for, because remember, like all this stuff is actually taken and we turn it into code. So we're not actually taking it and then bringing it into, like linking it actually to our code, like our actual code files. So not really. This is really just for you to create a presentation to be able to really share with people who you're working with or clients, so that they can understand and interact with the flow of the application, so you can get very quick feedback. So you can find out where there's problems, where there's not, and then as soon as everything is, you know, A-okay, then you can actually start coding. So that's my experience. Joan, I know Joan's used it as well. Maybe he has some
I just work
insights
completely different.
about the text.
Yeah. So yeah, what he said, spot on. I'm just in retrospect thinking, he asked me about how I use Photoshop.
Yeah.
I'm all thinking, as developers, I don't know how many of you guys have designed sites and you've sketched things on a piece of paper or like a napkin or something. So that's how I've used Photoshop. With the Wacom tablet, I'm doing the sketches as I'm thinking about what I'm gonna have for the site. But yeah, like you said, Photoshop is meant to be used for images, right? But because I come from like an artist background, so I've used it for painting and so on. It's just a habit. But in case you guys want to use paper and pencil, then that's fine too. But there's also Photoshop, right?
That's actually how I work.
Yeah.
This is called low fidelity wireframe. Where you start from sketch, and then from sketch you start working into the actual design, like the UI design like this. I actually have some of those images. I always start off low fidelity. I don't have those actually on this computer. I'll probably just show them next week. They're really brief anyway, but basically what I did is it helped me to understand how I wanted to split, for instance, this into two parts, like one part with the description and all that, because I was playing around with it. It's a way for you just to quickly just draw how you think everything should look. It's much faster a lot of times, especially starting off, than just going into a design program like this and then just going through this process. I did this all yesterday, with some of it today, but most of it I did yesterday.
All of it?
So, yeah, all of it. I work design very, very fast. It doesn't take long to do, and a lot of it doesn't have anything necessarily to do. It has to do with me, but I feel like it has more to do with how good XD is, actually, because XD is just set up in such a way where you can just so quickly go in there, and it's just intuitive. So even if I didn't tell you guys like how to use it, chances are you guys would just be able to open it as a bright people. You'd be able to look at it and say, oh, that looks like a square. I can make a square with that, you know?
So, not only are we smart people, but I'm lazy. So this does have a bunch of UI kits
Yup.
that you can work with. Each of them. You can download a myriad of different kits, so you can mix and match, take out, edit, and it's beautiful.
Oh, that's another thing. I might probably just the first 10 minutes. I'll probably go over that next week too, actually, because I actually have some of those packs. Those packs are cool because what you can do is like, for instance, if you're working like on a mobile app, for instance, right, and you want to actually have like the iOS has like a certain style, like the rules, actually guidelines for acceptance into their store of how you should actually design your apps, right? So with that in mind, it has a whole bunch of different like tab bar, controller, UIs, and all this stuff that you can actually take and then you can just bring in, so you don't even have to create that stuff. It's already created and you can just copy it and then just put it wherever it is in the project that you're working with. So I'll that's very quick to actually demonstrate too. So I'll do that next week too. That'd be cool. That'd be good, Joanne. Thank you for saying that. I'll do that. That'd be cool. You guys will like that. So.
I just have a question. When you're working with the SVGs, do they work a little bit differently than say like the JPEG PNGs in regards to like dynamicism? Like, do you have to physically change the size of it versus the one time I've worked with one?
Yeah.
I noticed that the picture came in and it came in out of size.
Right.
And then it was overflowing everything, and I was trying to like Flexbox control stuff, and I ended up having to physically change the size of the image in order to get it to like do what I wanted it to do, and I didn't know if that was just me or if that's indicative.
Is there a chance that you might have had sort of a raster mixed with vector? Like, what was the artwork that you
had?
It
was just illustrations.
SVG
SVG illustrations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
I don't know. Again, it could have been me because it was my first time working with them.
Oh, okay.
But I ended up, the only way I could get them to fit into, because I like to design mobile first, and so I was trying to get everything into the mobile sizing, and it took a little bit of like kind of just figuring out, and then once I sized the image, I think the image tag itself, I think I did a CSS like sized it that.
Oh, okay.
Then it
That's
snapped in, but it didn't snap in through
Yeah.
Flexbox, which is normally what would have happened.
Oh, okay.
So-
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Every time that I've ever changed the size, I'll just target that specific SVG that I've brought in, and then I'll just size it.
Okay.
however I want
So
it.
then
That's how I
that's
usually do it.
probably the way I was supposed to do it.
Yeah. You always want to be very specific about what you're actually trying to size. So if you're trying to actually size like that particular column or row with FlexBox,
Yeah.
then size that. But if you're trying to actually size like some artwork, just size that SVG or that PNG.
Because I noticed when I was working with like the JPEGs, they'll just kind of automatically just slip into the size of the
Yeah.
container, and that one way overflowed.
Yeah.
I had to figure that out.
Yeah. I'm still trying to think what might have caused that actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting actually.
Yeah, it was just a thing. It's called Front End Mentor, I think, and so they put up. You can download like projects.
Yeah.
And so it's all the designs and the specs and everything, and then you build the sites based
Yeah.
off of what they give you, and so it comes included with.
Right.
And so that was my first time working with the SVG, so it was flirty.
Yeah. I had no idea I would do that. Anyway, I'll keep thinking about it. Though,
Yeah, I know, right?
because
Sorry.
Yeah. No.
You're like
it's
me.
just-
You're gonna be like, I want the
yeah,
answer.
Yeah. That's gonna bother me a little bit actually. I'm thinking that when you were actually so when you were using FlexBots, right? Did you make like 2 columns? Like, was it 2 columns or like how were you?
No, I don't think so. I just display flex, but so it was like I set it up into divs. So I had my header div and my header, and then I had the sections.
Okay.
And so in each section and in the header, there were image tags or
Okay.
images that were
Right.
placed into there. And so then as soon as I put the boxes into flex, and then brought it down to the mobile size, so I could kind of start playing around with the pictures were still full size,
Right.
or the images. So then, like I say, I got it to work just by sizing and I think I just put a class or an ID on each tag and then sized it directly that way.
It really sounds like maybe there was somewhere like in the CSS that was actually telling it to be that larger size
Mhm.
instead of actually changing the size to be responsive.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah. Like I said, that's
Does that
quite
make
possible
sense?
that it was me.
Yeah. That's really what it sounds like. It might be. Yeah, that's what I think. Anybody else? So good. All right.
Good.
I did already, right?
You know what?
Just another announcement for those of you who might have come in while he was talking. You can please log in to login.iec.com and log in your meetup name so that we can keep track of who's coming.
And those are ants. Those are not ellipses. All of a sudden, things changed.
So
According to John here.
after you put your name,
Give us some layers.